gears and coming into our topic of today, UPI, Unified Payment Interface. I'm sure not a single person in this room is immune to that, the charm of this wonderful, capability that we all have in our phones. If you might be using GPay or Amazon Pay or Phone Pay or Paytm, it doesn't quite matter. All of them are riding on UPI, right? It is the first example in the history of Indian technology where an API built out of India, truly make in India, truly Atmanirbhar API, is the API that every Silicon Valley company is using to run the payment rails, right? In India and now hopefully even beyond, because UPI now has an international presence that they're trying to build, and countries across the world want to emulate the UPI framework. So for a change, instead of we Indian technologists building on Silicon Valley APIs, Silicon Valley companies are building on Indian APIs. So there's a bit of I would say, a bit of a chuckle that we can have from that. The tables have turned. I think UPI was the first one that really made this possible. Now, why is UPI so successful? At a very simple level, you will see the volumes in a minute. I'm sure I'll show you all the numbers. But more than that, I think the most important innovation of UPI has been the ability to make a payment look as simple as sending an email, right? If you look at RTGS, NEFT, and IMPS, and before that checks, any transfer from me to you would require me to know details about your bank account. You have to give me your bank IFSC code, you have to give a bank account number, you have to give a bank account name. So essentially, you're starting to divulge private information about your banking, where you do banking, what account number you have. So if you think your bank account number is something that should be kept private, well, guess what? RTGS, NEFT, and IMPS will not help you. You will have to disclose to me as a sender and you as a recipient all this private information for you to get money from me, right? So I'll ask you for that. I'll set you up as a payee on my bank account, and then I'll do the transfer, right? So that is the fundamental nature of banking for forever, digital payments. Moment the UPI comes in, we all get a virtual address, right? I become Shantanu at Citibank. You become Sudhakar at SBI, and Prasad becomes Prasad at Bank of Baroda, right? It's just like an email ID. It's virtualized. Behind that email ID, or we call it the virtual payment identifier, VPA, virtual payment address. Behind that VPA, you may be connected to any bank, any account, multiple bank accounts, and none of us will know that. When I send you the money, I send it to Sudhakar at SBI, and Sudhakar decides which bank account he's going to put it into. And I don't have to know, and I don't want to know, nor does he want to tell me, ideally in an ideal world, what accounts he has and where and what their numbers are, right? So first thing that this UPI did was make this abstraction, layer of abstraction, which allows us to all have a virtual payment address and not have to know anything more about each other and preserve this privacy. And once you look at email, if my email is sitting on Gmail server, yours on Outlook server, I don't really have to know anything. Your email address is enough for me to send you an email. That entire, the entire complexity of your server versus my server, the interoperability, all that is hidden behind this beautiful, elegant layer of an email address. Similarly, a payment address takes care of that problem. So once you do that, you suddenly realize that everybody is in a position to transact and exchange money with minimum friction. The amount of the concept setting up, why do you think it's so easy to pay on UPI, and we all love to pay UPI micropayments? Because the cost of setting up is zero, right? We don't have to set up somebody and wait for a certain amount of time for the bank to approve a cooling off period and all that good stuff. So that is the first and foremost reason why there is such a significant, traction. It becomes frictionless payments basically. And then if I move to the next point, and then what has it led to? This has led to in the last, I would say, since December 2016 is when demonetization happened. I'm sure all of you remember that very well. When you look at demonetization, UPI was just at that point coming out of, it was just being born, right? It was just like a newly born baby. It was in its infancy. And a few months into, I think May 2016, it was officially launched. And November 2016, the demon happens. And I remember very clearly, I just joined the board of NPCI at that time. It was very interesting. That first month, we took the data and we found 1 million with an M, 1 million transactions with UPI in the entire month of December 2016, the month of demonetization. And you might remember the Prime Minister was out there saying that everybody go digital payments. Paytm was putting out full pages. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for making this happen. We're all doing so well because of all this. And there's a lot of hoopla that happened. But the point is that was the turning point for a great architecture, like I just described, a very simple, elegant way of transferring money from each other. And then you add to that this major demonetization push, and all of a sudden, UPI gathers steam.